1-month review of a radiant floor system that I plumbed myself. I did everything except the 9 loops in the concrete off the manifold. To start, I went with an electric boiler. The brand is Electro Boiler, based out of Minneapolis, Minnesota. It's an 11.5 kilowatt boiler, and I must say I'm very impressed with the boiler in every aspect. The heating element is welded in place, high temperature wiring inside, and it was very straightforward, easy to install with the instructions they provided. So from there, we come off of a 1-inch T. I plumbed this for 1.25 inch copper piping and then put the insulation over top of it. I would say if you're going to do this on your own, know which boiler you're going to put in before you start the process. That was a lesson learned that I was going to go gas at first, and then all the gas quotes I got from the HVAC guys were $4 to $5 grand for those to be installed. So this was much more cost effective for me, about $1,500 for the boiler, even though electric is a less efficient to heat per BTU than gas is. I think my TCO is 5 to 8 years before that even tips over that TCO. But from there, going from the boiler, I have a 30 PSI pressure reducing valve on the top, but that then kind of tees off onto the boiler, goes over to 1.25 inch pipe, air water separator at the top. Then I come down in my primary loop. I have a fill valve down, strainer for sediment, another shut off, and then back to the boiler. That is my primary loop. With this electric boiler, you do not need a primary loop, so another reason to know which boiler you want to go before you plumb up a primary secondary loop. I guess I think I would still do a primary secondary loop, because if I ever want to put a gas boiler in, you're going to need a primary secondary loop, as the water temp coming into the boiler I think needs to be warmed up a little bit so it doesn't shock the heating element in the boiler. But off of the primary loop, I have the T. I have a pressure and temperature gauge that goes up into my Taco 0015 pump, 3-speed. I have it on low. That then pushes the hot water into the manifold, down through the system, up through the blue, and then up to another shut-off fill, and then another temperature pressure gauge. I then shut this valve off because my manufacturer of the boiler does not require mixing of hot water along with cold water. So it's just all cold water forced through the pump into the primary loop back into the boiler. From there I go, I guess, down off of the air water separator. I have another fill, and then I have an ice maker line that's plumbed. You can see the braided cord. This is a backflow preventer right here into a 12 PSI regulator. So if my closed loop system does ever drop pressure, that will trickle water into the system, regaining its pressure. It should never be needed, but yeah, it's there for CYA. Off the T branch to the right, I go down into the my expansion tank. The expansion tank is set for 11 PSI, which is about 1 PSI lower than my my system itself, so there's always a little bit of water in there. When the system does heat up, it gains about 5 to 7 PSI, so it does force a little bit more water into the tank. I set the boiler about 105 degrees. I get about 105 degrees off of my supply thermostat pressure gauge. As it pumps through the system, it comes up the cold here, so the bottom pressure gauge is my cold return. That's about 20 degrees cooler. The boiler manufacturer had a little formula to calculate gallons per minute, and they wanted, 3 to 4 gallons per minute. And with a 20-degree temperature drop on my system, it takes amps and volts and a few other numbers that they you have to calculate gallons per minute on. But with my system on low, my pump on low, I was able to get a 20-degree temperature drop. And that was, it's adequate for, it's what, 3 to 4 gallons per minute for me. Another lesson learned, this is a brass to brass joining. I would go brass to brass, do not go brass to copper, as you'll cross thread and just chew them up. I did put Blue Monster pipe dope and tape on my joints, as I had a couple of them drip, so that was good to do right off the bat. All of my copper joints, I have never had an issue with those leaking, so my soldering skills, even though I'm a novice, was pretty straightforward and easy. One thing I did run into an issue on is, you can see here my ball valve, there's a little nut on the inside. I would say most of those had a small drip, so before you hook up your system, snug them up a little bit. Otherwise, you'll just be, tighten them when you fill it. Another lesson learned, it was very easy to fill. I just hook a hose on here and then onto the bottom of my water heater and, fill it up. Turn it. It does force a little bit of air through the lines, but the air-water separator hisses all the air out, and then you won't see, pressure doesn't happen. Pressure doesn't rise until you've, filtered out most of the air. So, to that point, I don't know if you need all of these ball valves. They're, $20 to $50 a piece. There's 1, 2. I definitely wouldn't do that one. 3. I don't even know if you need them here, because as easy it is to fill, I don't know if it makes sense to spend, a couple $100 on isolation containment, since it is a closed loop system. If you have to shut one of them off, you might as well just refill the entire system. It's only a couple gallon worth of water. I went electric boiler because my house does have a gas forced air heat, and this was just to offset the basement temp by about 5 degrees. So in, late February, March, when I finished setting it up, the boiler ran for about an hour a day. I have a Sense app that monitored that, and then according to the Sense app, and 11,500 watts worth of energy was about $1 an hour, so about $1 a day. So, typical 30-day month, it's about $30 to run. I assume that'll be 2 or 3 hours worth of run time in December, January, February for us in Iowa. So yeah, it'll be $30 to $90 a month to operate. That's just an assumption right now, as I haven't had it running during those months. What else? Yeah, it's pretty straightforward. I'm definitely a novice at HVAC and plumbing, so this was pretty straightforward. Running the 220 into the boiler was pretty straightforward. It's 2 hots and a ground. I have a Taco SR 501 switch relay that the top wire is from my thermostat into the Taco. The wire to the right goes into the boiler. So when the thermostat tells the Taco switch relay to turn on, that then tells the pump to turn on, and it also tells the boiler, switches the boiler to turn on, and then the boiler kicks on with its 60 amp service. I have the Sense app, so that did monitor how much energy the boiler was using. Yeah, what can I say? It was, the biggest consuming device in my house at 60 amp for, a period of time, an hour, whenever it runs. So it's easy to identify. I haven't had any issues with the boiler. Haven't had any issues with the Taco pump. I'm really impressed with the Taco 0015 3-speed pump, as if I do want to put more water through the system, I can just turn it up higher. Very easy to install. Very easy to fill, which surprised me. So because it's so easy to fill, the air-water separator and to force all the bubbles out is straightforward. I would say before you turn on the heating element, make sure you look at your your flow monitor. As you can see right now, it's off as all of my nipples are up at 0 gallons per minute. But make sure all of those have flow before you turn on your heating element. Otherwise, that could harm your element, crack the device because you're trying to boil air, basically. Yeah, that's all I can think of. Let me know if you have any questions. The heater was about $1,500, and what I have probably $1,000 in copper. One thing I guess I didn't realize is if you do start soldering this not on, mounted to the wall, you won't have it flush, so you might have to reheat some of your joints so the copper weld breaks. You can push the copper pipe so it fits snug or flush against. You can see my black railing I have there to hold it. But I guess that was the only kind of struggle that I had. And then placement, how to place it when you're just kind of looking at things, not really sure where you want it to go. I guess the next thing was make sure you know which boiler you want to go with first, as that'll dictate the pipe size. 1 inch can easily dissipate the 39,000 BTU that I have. So I step it down, or I step it up actually. I go from 1 inch from the boiler to right here, I think is where I go 1.25 inches. That's not really necessary with only a 40,000 BTU boiler. But yeah, I was planning on a bigger boiler, but doing the math on the floor, what is it, between 15 and 25 BTU per square foot that you want to heat. My basement's right at 2,200 square foot, so you can do the math on that. I'm a little bit undersized on the boiler, but what does that really mean when it only runs an hour a day? I didn't want a gas boiler that I would continually short cycle. I do realize they step down, what, between 5 and 15 times. So with the gas boilers, but I guess I don't have that issue, as my boiler right now I feel is adequately sized at 39,000 BTU. Yeah, I think that's all I have. Let me know if you have any questions. Thanks for watching.